I want you to picture something for a second. Just put yourself in this specific scenario.
Okay.
It's exactly 3:00 a.m.
Yeah.
You're sitting at your kitchen table. The entire house is completely, almost aggressively quiet.
The best time for overthinking.
Right, exactly. Outside your window, the streetlights are casting those long, motionless shadows. The neighborhood is just entirely still. Like, there are no cars, no sirens, no dogs barking.
Just silence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Inside, the only sound is the low, steady, mechanical hum of the refrigerator in the background. You're sitting there, maybe your hands are wrapped around a cold glass of water, feeling the condensation against your palms.
I can picture it.
And as you sit in that profound stillness, the ambient noise of your own life fades away, and you suddenly become acutely aware of your own physical existence.
Right.
You hear your heartbeat. It's just thumping away in your chest, a steady rhythmic drum. Completely unprompted. It is beating without you asking it to.
Just doing its thing.
Exactly. You notice your lungs drawing in oxygen, your chest rising and falling, and you don't have to consciously issue a command to your diaphragm to contract. Your body is running a million complex physiological processes right in that quiet moment.
Yeah.
And your conscious mind has absolutely nothing to do with it.
It is the absolute perfect place to start our discussion. Because that 3 a.m. moment, that stark, quiet realization that something immense, complex, and highly intelligent is operating entirely beneath the surface of your conscious will, well, that's the exact threshold we are crossing today.
Yeah.
It's the realization that you are not the one meticulously orchestrating your survival. I mean, you are merely riding inside the machinery that is doing it for you.
And for all our past deep dives, if you've been following along with this source material, you know we've been doing some incredibly heavy internal lifting.
Oh, massive lifting.
We spent hours dissecting part 1 of this massive framework. We were essentially auditing the conscious mind. Like, we were mapping out our nervous system triggers, learning about cognitive behavioral loops.
Charting how to regulate our emotions.
Exactly. And frankly, doing a whole lot of intellectual and emotional bookkeeping, we were staring at the blueprints of our own psychology.
Which, was absolutely necessary work. The source material refers to everything we covered in part 1 as building the architecture of the self.
Right.
It's the foundational, structural phase of personal development. You simply cannot renovate a house or build a skyscraper without inspecting the foundation first.
No, of course not.
You have to know where your psychological load-bearing walls are. You have to clean the dirty lenses through which you view the world before you can trust what you see. But, and this is a big but, once that foundation is poured, you can't just live in an empty basement forever.
Yeah, you have to actually build the house and step outside into the neighborhood, which is why today we are embarking on a very special mission. We are doing a double feature masterclass.
I am so ready for this.
We are officially leaving part 1 behind, crossing the threshold, and covering chapters 25, 26, 27, and 28 of this extensive, incredibly dense source material.
Dense is definitely the word.
Right. The sources we have for today are this fascinating, sometimes head-spinning blend of highly structured conceptual manuscripts combined with raw, almost stream of consciousness audio notes from the author.
And the overarching theme of these materials is a fundamental pivot in how we interact with reality. Like, if part 1 was the foyer of understanding, learning about the mechanics of our own brains, part 2 is stepping fully into the house of being.
Wow, stepping into the house of being.
Yeah. We are shifting from learning about our lives in a sterile academic way to actually living them in real-time dynamic collaboration with an environment and a force much larger than our isolated selves.
Okay, well, let's unpack this immediately. Because to move from that tight, highly controlled architecture of the self where we feel like we are the supreme rulers of our little psychological kingdoms into the broader, unpredictable universe, we have to recognize a rather humbling truth.
Very humbling.
And this brings us formally into chapter 25, the unseen force.
This is the grand pivot of the entire text. The central, unavoidable realization of chapter 25 is this. You are not the one generating the life force.
Right.
You are just the one hosting it. You are a biological conduit for an energy and an organizing principle that predates you and will outlast you.
I have to say, if you are a type A personality, or just a modern, ambitious professional who prides yourself on extreme ownership and being in absolute control of your destiny, reading that sentence feels like a personal attack.
Oh, absolutely. It shatters the ego.
It's terrifying. But the text uses a metaphor here that completely rewired how I view my own brain, and I really want to explore it. It's the concept of the user interface versus the operating system.
It is brilliant in its accuracy,
Right.
especially for our modern digitally saturated minds. Think about how you interact with a computer or a smartphone.
Okay.
When you look at your screen, you see the desktop. You see colorful little square icons with rounded edges. You have a folder icon that looks like a manila envelope. You have a little trash can for deleted
An
files.
envelope icon for email.
Exactly. That is the user interface. It is a highly curated, simplified, symbolic illusion. I mean, there are no actual manila folders inside your laptop.
No tiny trash cans.
Right. There is no physical trash can. The interface is designed to hide the staggering complexity of the machine so that a human being can actually use it without being totally overwhelmed.
Right. Because beneath those friendly, colorful little icons, there is an operating system. There's the motherboard. There are billions of transistors firing.
Millions of lines of complex, invisible machine code running at lightning speed.
Yeah, managing memory allocation, monitoring thermal throttling, routing power from the battery, executing logic gates. It is a world of sheer mathematical complexity that we never, ever see.
Precisely. And the profound argument Chapter 25 makes is that human consciousness operates the exact same way. What are the desktop icons of the human mind?
Oh, that's such a good question.
They are our daily tasks, the unread emails in our inbox, the calendar invites for next week, the fluctuating number that represents our bank account balance, the social media feed.
The fitness tracker telling you how many steps you took today.
Yes. Our anxieties about a meeting tomorrow, these are just symbolic representations of life.
And here is the brutal reality check. Most of us spend 95%, honestly, maybe 99.9% of our waking lives staring exclusively at the desktop icons of our brain.
We really do.
We click these icons all day long, we obsess over them, we try to frantically rearrange them on the screen to make our desktop look cleaner and more organized. Like, if I just color code my calendar, I will be at peace.
It's an illusion of control.
Exactly. And we spend zero time looking at the actual code running underneath. We're completely, entirely disconnected from the biological and energetic machine itself.
We treat the symbols of reality as if they are reality itself. The table points out how absurd this gets with something as simple as a fitness tracker.
Oh, I loved this part.
You look at your wrist, the watch says you took 10,000 steps and closed your rings, and your conscious mind decides, I am a healthy, successful person today. You literally outsource your internal physical reality to an external digital interface.
You don't actually feel your muscles.
Right. You don't assess your joint fatigue or notice your cardiovascular state. You just read the icon. We are living completely abstracted lives.
That leads right into the other major analogy the source material uses in this chapter, which I think bridges the gap between our Part 1 deep dives and this new frontier perfectly. The text calls it the driver versus the network.
It's a crucial distinction.
I love this because it validates all the hard work we've done up to this point while immediately showing us why it isn't enough.
Yeah, because in Part 1, through all that psychological heavy lifting, we learned how to drive the car.
Exactly. We learned to steer our own minds. We learned where our emotional brakes are. We learned to read our internal dashboard so the engine doesn't overheat.
In human terms, we learned self-regulation.
Right. We learned how to pause and take a deep diaphragmatic breath when our boss triggers us instead of just lashing out. We learned how to map our trauma responses. We became phenomenal, highly capable, deeply mindful drivers.
Which is a monumental achievement. I mean, most people never even learn to drive their own minds. They just sit in the passenger seat and let their subconscious react to everything.
Yeah, that's so true.
But here is the limitation the text introduces. You can be the most emotionally regulated, highly skilled, deeply mindful driver on the very best road in a perfectly tuned sports car and still be completely, hopelessly lost if you don't know what city you're in.
Right. If you don't connect to the GPS, if you don't plug into the broader traffic network to see where the macro level blockages are, where the bridges are out, and where the open roads are flowing, your individual driving skills don't actually matter.
Not at all.
You're just doing perfectly executed donuts in a Walmart parking lot with excellent posture.
Right.
You're totally regulated, but you're going absolutely nowhere. You have to connect to the network.
You have to plug in.
But I need to stop here and offer some heavy pushback, because when I was reading this section, my skeptic radar went off like an air raid siren.
I figured it might.
The author keeps calling this network the unseen force. And I have to admit, the moment I read unseen force, I groaned. My mind immediately went to space wizards, telekinesis, magical thinking, and cheap New Age retreats.
Oh, totally. The branding is tough.
Right. I think a lot of our listeners, who are highly analytical, who live in the world of data and science, will have the exact same reaction. Are we talking about mystical quantum woo magic here? How do we keep this concept grounded in reality?
That is the most important pushback you could offer, and frankly, the authors of the text anticipate that exact skepticism from the reader. They know the language has been hijacked by pseudoscience.
Thank goodness.
What is fascinating here is how rigorously they strip away all the mystical, incense-burning baggage from the concept. The unseen force is not magic. It is not a crystal ball. It is not an invisible fairy granting wishes.
Okay, so what is it?
The text defines it, quite literally, as the fundamental electrical and thermodynamic signal of reality.
Okay, explain that. How is it thermodynamic?
Let's look at it through the lens of physics and biology. Human beings are open thermodynamic systems. We do not exist in isolation. We are constantly exchanging energy, heat, and information with our environment.
Right.
Your body is a bioelectrical machine. Every time your heart beats, an electrical node in your heart, the SA node, fires an electrical impulse. Your nervous system operates via electrical action potentials and chemical neurotransmitters. You are literally a walking electromagnetic field.
A walking battery is that?
Exactly. The unseen force the text refers to is simply the acknowledgement that this energy does not start and stop at the boundary of your skin. It is the systemic connection between all living systems.
Okay, check it.
Think of your smartphone again. You can have the best applications installed, a flawless, beautifully organized interface, and a pristine OLED screen. That's your part one work. That's your regulated self.
Right.
But if you have 1% battery left and absolutely no Wi-Fi or cellular connection, that $1,000 phone is basically just an expensive, shiny bird. It can't update. It can't communicate.
Yeah, it's useless.
The unseen force is the power source and the Wi-Fi signal. It is the underlying current of energy and momentum that animates biological life and dictates the unfolding of macro events in the environment. It is gravity, it is electromagnetism, it is the momentum of human culture and history all weaving together.
So it's the difference between forcing your phone to work on 1% battery by dimming the screen to 0, closing all the background apps, and praying it doesn't die.
Which is exactly what we do in burnout.
Yes, which, let's be honest, is exactly what we do when we try to force our way through a period of extreme stress at work. We just grit our teeth and rely on our tiny reserve of finite willpower versus just finding a wall outlet, plugging the damn thing in, and letting the grid do the heavy lifting.
Precisely. Chapter 25 is demanding a complete paradigm shift. It wants you to move from pushing life, which relies entirely on your own localized, finite, and easily exhausted willpower, to aligning with the current that is already flowing through the environment.
Pushing versus aligning.
Exactly. When you plug your phone into the wall, you aren't personally generating the electricity. The massive power grid, the turbines at the dam miles away are generating it. You are simply providing a conduit.
You're just tapping it.
You are allowing the larger energy to flow through your localized device. That is what interacting with the unseen force is. It is realizing there is a massive current beneath the surface of the ocean. You don't have to flap your arms and create the current. You just have to stop swimming against it, catch the slipstream, and let the ocean do the work.
I love that demystification.
Yeah.
It's not magic. It's just acknowledging that we are small nodes operating inside a massive, highly energized, complex system.
Exactly.
But that naturally begs the immediate practical question. What does this actually mean for the listener? If there is this massive network of environmental data and energy out there, how do we physically plug into it? We need a receiver.
We do.
Which brings us directly and explicitly into chapter 26, and specifically the first half of this chapter, which focuses entirely on intuition.
Yes. If the unseen force is the vast environmental network, Chapter 26 asks the biological question, how do we physically connect our human device to that network? How do we read the Wi-Fi signal?
Right.
And the answer the text provides is the human nervous system. But to accept this, we have to fundamentally, radically reevaluate how we view our own biological hardware.
And the text provides a specific data point here that just stopped me dead in my tracks. Had to read it 3 times. It compares the raw processing power of our conscious thinking mind to the sheer processing power of our unconscious nervous system.
It is the 11 million bits versus 40 bits metric. And it is absolutely staggering when you truly internalize what it means for how you live your life.
Lay it on us.
According to the neurological research cited in the sources, your human nervous system right now at this exact second, as you are listening to this deep dive, is processing approximately 11 million bits of information every single second.
That is just hard to fathom.
Let's break down what that actually means. Your visual cortex is processing millions of pixels of light, shadow, depth, and color. Your auditory system is processing the acoustic properties of the room, the microfluctuations in my voice, the hum of the air conditioner.
Right.
Your skin is measuring the exact ambient temperature, the barometric pressure, the texture of the fabric of your clothes resting against your arms. Internally, your interoceptive network is monitoring your blood sugar, your heart rate variability, the acidity of your stomach, the tension in your lower back. Your body is taking in 11 million data points per second.
11 million bits every single second. A massive roaring river of environmental and biological data.
A roaring river. But your conscious mind, the part of you that thinks in English sentences, the part of you that considers itself you, the part that is currently saying, wow, 11 million bits is a lot of data.
The part that is worried about what to make for dinner tonight.
Exactly. That conscious prefrontal cortex can only process roughly 40 bits of information per second.
40 bits. That's it. 11 million compared to 40. It's like trying to drink from an industrial fire hose through a tiny plastic coffee stirrer.
It is the ultimate bottleneck. So the mathematical reality is that 99.999% of the data your body is constantly collecting, synthesizing, and analyzing from the environment never, ever reaches your conscious awareness.
It just can't fit.
It simply cannot fit through the 40-bit doorway. It never becomes an articulated thought. But, and this is the crux of the chapter, that massive trove of data doesn't just disappear into a void. It is stored, cross-referenced, and processed by the body's highly intelligent subsystems.
And this is where I want to push back on the dominant cultural narrative we all live in, because this text completely reframes something that gets a terrible, dismissive reputation in modern society, the gut feeling.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's be brutally honest about how our world works. If you are sitting in a highly competitive corporate boardroom, and the CEO asks for the predictive data models on a massive new merger, and you raise your hand and say, well, my gut feeling says we shouldn't do it.
You will be politely, or perhaps impolitely, laughed out of the room. Your credibility will be permanently damaged.
Instantly. Because in our hyper-rational post-Enlightenment culture, intuition is treated as this soft, illogical, inherently feminine or almost childish concept. It's seen as the literal opposite of hard data. It's viewed as a guess.
A shot in the dark.
Right. But the source text flips this entirely on its head. It argues that a gut feeling is hard data. It isn't magic. It is the output of your biological supercomputer. It is advanced, highly evolved pattern recognition happening infinitely faster than your tiny 40-bit conscious thought process could ever hope to articulate.
If we really dig into the mechanics of this, it changes everything. Consider the vagus nerve, which is the massive information highway connecting your brain to your gut and your heart. And consider the enteric nervous system, which is literally a mesh-like system of hundreds of millions of neurons lining your gastrointestinal tract. Science often calls it the second brain.
The second brain.
When you are sitting in that boardroom and you suddenly notice your jaw is tightly clenched, or you feel a sudden, inexplicable dropping sensation in your stomach when a specific vendor starts making a proposal, that isn't just you feeling a little stressed.
Right, it's not random.
It is your 11 million bit system handing you a highly synthesized, critical executive summary. Your massive nervous system has processed the micro-hesitation in the vendor's vocal cadence. It has analyzed the slight asymmetrical micro-expressions on their face that indicate deception.
Oh, wow.
It has unconsciously cross-referenced the slightly overly optimistic figures in the financial spreadsheet with historical patterns of failure you've encountered over a 20-year career. It has analyzed all of this in a fraction of a second.
Incredible.
But because it literally does not have the bandwidth to send a complex, multi-paragraph English sentence up to your 40-bit brain fast enough, it bypasses language entirely. It sends a visceral, physical signal. It drops your stomach, it spikes your cortisol, it tightens your jaw.
It's basically sending an emergency push notification to your body. Like, alert. Severe inconsistencies detected in the environment. Proceed with extreme caution.
Yes. A biological push notification.
But because we are so culturally obsessed with our 40-bit desktop icons, our spreadsheets, our logic models, our pros and cons lists, we completely ignore the push notification from the operating system. We wave it away. We say, oh, I just had too much coffee this morning, or I'm just being paranoid because I didn't sleep well.
Rationalize it away.
When we ignore our physical intuition, we are literally demanding that our tiny, easily overwhelmed 40-bit processor do the heavy lifting of an 11 million bit supercomputer. It's an act of supreme biological arrogance.
It is absolute arrogance, and it consistently leads to terrible, catastrophic decision-making. The traveler in our source text discovers a profound truth embodiment, which means actually feeling and paying attention to those physical sensations in your body isn't just a soft wellness exercise meant to make you feel relaxed at a yoga retreat.
Far from it.
It is about rigorous sensory literacy. It is learning to read the raw, unfiltered data of reality before the anxious, narrative-obsessed conscious mind gets a hold of it and distorts it with rationalizations.
I want you, the listener, to pause and genuinely think about this in the context of your own life right now. Consider a major turning point. Maybe it was a job offer you accepted, a long-term relationship you entered, or maybe an apartment or a house you walked into for a viewing.
Something significant.
Yeah. Think back to that moment. I guarantee you there was a time where you instantly knew in a fraction of a second that the situation was exactly perfectly right or horribly dangerously wrong. You felt it in your bones.
Before you even knew why.
Exactly. You knew it before you had the vocabulary to explain why you knew it. And if you're like most of us, you probably spent the next 3 weeks using your 40-bit brain to build an elaborate logical spreadsheet to justify what your gut had already definitively concluded in the second one. That was your 11 million bit system working perfectly.
And realizing that naturally and logically leads us into the second half of chapter 26. Because once you finally get this 11 million bit biological receiver online, once you unclog the pipes and start actually trusting the physical data your body is handing you, you have to ask the next critical question.
What's that?
What kind of signal is this massive receiver actually picking up from the unseen force?
Right. If I finally bought the expensive radio and I've tuned the dial perfectly, what is actually playing on the station?
It picks up patterns. Deep, underlying structural patterns of reality that the conscious mind is entirely blind to, which introduces one of the most misunderstood concepts in modern psychology, synchronicity.
Yes. We are explicitly moving into the second half of chapter 26 now. And I am so glad we are here because we need to do some serious, aggressive linguistic house cleaning.
We really do.
The word synchronicity has been completely hijacked by pop spirituality and social media astrologers.
It has been terribly diluted. The source material is remarkably strict and precise about this definition. The first rule the text gives us is that we have to permanently remove the word coincidence from our vocabulary.
Which makes sense because coincidence implies a fundamentally nihilistic worldview. It implies that the universe is just a giant, meaningless lottery tumbler of random chaos.
Right.
It implies that two meaningful things bumping into each other is just blind, dumb luck. It's a dismissal. Oh, that's just a coincidence. It basically means don't look any closer. There's nothing to learn here.
Exactly. It's an intellectual cop-out. The text frames synchronicity not as luck and certainly not as magic, but through the hard physics of resonance.
Resonance.
Like sound. Think of a tuning fork in a laboratory. If you strike a tuning fork that is pitched to the note of A, it begins to vibrate at a very specific frequency. If you bring it near another entirely unstruck tuning fork that is also geometrically designed to pitch to A, the second fork will begin to vibrate and hum audibly without you ever physically touching it. That is the physical law of acoustic resonance. The vibration of the first fork travels through the invisible medium of the air, and because the geometric structure of the second fork matches that exact frequency, it absorbs the energy and activates.
Okay, that makes perfect sense in a physics lab with metal forks. But I need to push back hard here, because the leap from physical acoustics to human events is where people lose me.
Sure, let's hear it.
Let's use the classic example of synchronicity. I am sitting in my car, and I randomly start thinking about an old friend I haven't seen or spoken to in 5 solid years. And suddenly my phone buzzes, and it's a text message from that exact friend.
A very common experience.
Extremely common.
Eh.
Now, the pop spiritualists will say you manifested that text or your souls are connected. But if we are keeping this grounded in the 11 million bit nervous system and environmental data, how does the text justify this without resorting to actual magic? My vagus nerve does not have a Bluetooth connection to my friend's iPhone 3 states away. How does biological resonance explain that text message?
That is the exact friction point where the paradigm has to shift. The text doesn't rely on quantum entanglement or telepathy to explain this. It relies on the concept of complex dynamical systems and shared environmental pressures.
Okay, walk me through that.
You and your friend, having known each other deeply, share certain internal behavioral algorithms and psychological structures. You are two tuning forks shaped by similar past experiences. Now, consider the unseen force as the macro environment, the shifting cultural moods, the subtle changes in the season, the broader economic or social anxieties playing out in the world.
Right.
Your 11 million bit nervous system is processing the current environmental state. Maybe a subtle shift toward autumn, a specific cultural news story, a particular stressor, and that data triggers a specific deeply buried psychological node in you, bringing the memory of your friend to the surface of your 40-bit mind.
Okay, I'm starting to see it.
Because your friend shares similar psychological architecture and is existing in the same macro environment, their 11 million bit system processes the exact same environmental pressures, triggers the exact same node, and prompts them to reach out. It isn't that your thought caused their text message via telepathy.
It's that we were both struck by the same tuning fork.
Yes, both of your highly sensitive biological receivers resonated with the exact same unseen environmental signal at the exact same time. It is a shared biological algorithmic output triggered by a hidden environmental input.
Wow. That completely removes the magic and replaces it with awe at the sheer complexity of our biology. It's not that I summon the text message with my mind. It's that both my friend and I are bobbing on the same massive ocean, and a specific invisible wave lifted both of our boats at the exact same millisecond.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
And this beautifully explains the negative side of resonance, too. The text points out that when people are deeply internally misaligned, when they are constantly radiating baseline anxiety, anger, and victimhood, they continually, coincidentally, bump into frustrating, aggressive people and catastrophic situations.
Precisely. They are a tuning fork furiously vibrating at the frequency of friction and conflict. As they walk through the world, they naturally agitate and activate all the latent friction in the people and systems around them. They resonate with the chaos.
And this leads us to what is arguably the most mind-bending philosophical concept in the entire source material, which the text uses to explain how these patterns operate over a lifespan: the concept of the spiral of time.
It is a concept that aggressively challenges our deepest, most foundational cultural assumptions about reality. In Western industrialized culture, we are indoctrinated to view time strictly linearly. We view time as a perfectly straight horizontal line drawn on a whiteboard.
Right. Birth is on the left, death is on the right.
Exactly. And in this linear model, the past is a physical place that is gone forever, completely dead and inaccessible. The future is a hypothetical place that does not exist yet. The only thing that is real is this exact, razor-thin sliver of the present moment moving steadily from left to right like a progress bar on a computer.
A progress bar. That's exactly how it feels.
This view of time was essentially invented to manage train schedules and factory shifts during the Industrial Revolution. It is mechanical time.
But the unseen force, as we've established, is a biological and environmental network. It doesn't wear a mechanical watch. It doesn't care about the progress bar.
Exactly. The force operates organically. The text introduces the concept that psychological and environmental time actually moves as a spiral.
A spiral.
Imagine a tightly coiled spring, or better yet, a grand spiral staircase in a tower. If you are walking up a spiral staircase, you are undeniably moving forward and upward in your life. You are gaining experience. You are aging. But because it is a spiral, as you complete a loop, you eventually arrive at a position directly above the exact spot you stood on a level below.
Oh, this is profound. So the past isn't a dead place far behind me on a flat line. The past is structurally beneath me.
Exactly. The past and the future fold back and stack upon the present moment. This is why trauma, or deep memory, is so visceral. When you encounter a situation that triggers a deep fear from 10 years ago, you aren't just politely remembering a distant event.
You're reliving it.
Because the structure of the spiral means that the energy of that past pattern is radiating directly upward into your present coordinates. The past is still actively emitting a signal. And similarly, the trajectory of your future patterns is already exerting a gravitational pull downward onto your present.
So to tie this all together, when I get a powerful gut feeling about a massive life decision, my 11 million bit nervous system isn't just reading the microexpressions and barometric pressure of the isolated now. It is sensing the curve of the spiral.
Yes.
It is reading the structural resonance. It recognizes that this specific decision maps perfectly onto a pattern from a loop below, and is warning me about where the architecture of this spiral inevitably curls toward.
That is a brilliant synthesis. You are sensing the deeper currents of time, which are not moving in a straight line, but are weaving and folding in multiple directions.
And while the physics of a time spiral might sound intensely abstract, the text points out that every single human being has practically physically felt this. We all know what stepping into the spiral feels like. It's a phenomenon of timelessness.
A feeling we all crave.
Think about a time in your life when you were in a true, absolute flow state. Maybe you are an artist and you were painting. Maybe you're a programmer who got deep into writing an elegant piece of code. Maybe you were playing a high-intensity sport, or just having one of those incredible soul-bearing conversations with a friend over a bottle of wine.
You lose yourself.
Completely. You look up at the clock on the wall, and your conscious mind swears that only 15 minutes have passed. But you realize it's been 4 hours. The sun has gone down.
That is not an illusion. That is the literal physiological feeling of your consciousness stepping out of linear, mechanical 40-bit time and stepping fully into the spiral of the unseen force. In the spiral, psychological effort becomes effortless. Time bends and stretches. You are no longer anxiously watching the progress bar. You are riding the current of the system itself.
Okay, let's take a deep breath and recap where we are, because the architecture of this theory is building beautifully, layer upon layer. We now understand the unseen force is the network. We have our physical receiver turned on and unclogged, our 11 million bit nervous system intuition.
Right.
We know exactly what signal we are listening for, the physical resonance of synchronicity. And we know the map we are navigating on, the multi-dimensional spiral of time.
All the pieces are in place.
But all of that is highly conceptual. The obvious screaming next question for the listener is, how do we actually drive the vehicle on a Tuesday morning? How do we live day to day with this staggering amount of data without losing our minds?
That is the big question.
This brings us directly across the threshold into the practical application. I am explicitly announcing our shift into Chapter 27, alignment.
Alignment is where the lofty, theoretical architecture of the mind becomes a rigorous, daily, boots-on-the-ground practice. It is where the rubber meets the road.
And before we dive into the mechanics, we need to aggressively deconstruct this word, because alignment is quite possibly the most abused corporate buzzword of the 21st century.
No, without a doubt.
You hear it in every single Q3 strategy meeting. We need to get aligned. I need the marketing department in alignment with the sales division. It has basically devolved into a polite, sanitized way for a manager to say, I want everyone in this room to stop arguing, nod their heads, and blindly comply with my specific plan.
It has been totally weaponized as a tool for corporate compliance. But the source material rescues the word from middle management and restores its structural integrity. The text breaks true alignment down into 3 vital, physical, and highly demanding layers. Alignment isn't about forced agreement. It is about systemic coherence.
Let's walk through these 3 layers in detail, because if you miss one, the whole system collapses. Layer 1 is self.
Layer 1 is internal physiological coherence. It means your 40-bit conscious thoughts, your 11 million bit physical sensations, and your core values are all pointing in the exact same vector.
Okay.
The text is utterly brutal about this. You cannot be aligned with the external universe if you are at war internally. Let's say your 40-bit conscious mind, driven by ego and a desire for status, says, I absolutely must take this promotion to vice president.
But your gut says something else.
Exactly. Your 11 million bit nervous system is screaming in panic. It is chronically clenching your jaw, destroying your REM sleep, and giving you acid reflux because on a foundational level, it knows the toxic culture of that executive team violates your core ethical values.
So you're split.
Right. If that is happening, you are fundamentally misaligned. Any action you take from that fractured state will require massive, exhausting amounts of friction and willpower to sustain, and your biology will eventually force a collapse.
It's the equivalent of trying to drive a high-performance sports car, where the front wheels are turned hard to the left and the back wheels are locked pointing to the right. You can press the gas pedal as hard as you want. You might generate a ton of smoke and noise, but you aren't going forward.
You're just burning out.
You're going to burn the rubber down to the rims and completely destroy the transmission. You have to get the wheels straight first.
Beautifully said.
Okay, so let's say I've done the work. I am internally coherent. My mind and body agree. That brings us to layer 2, reality.
And this is the layer that acts as a sledgehammer to a lot of modern pop psychology. Layer 2 is the absolute respect for external constraints and objective, unyielding facts. It is the humbling recognition that you, as an individual node, do not dictate the laws of the universe.
I cannot tell you how much I love this section of the text. I highlighted it until my pen ran dry. This is what I call the anti-manifestation protocol, because over the last 20 years, there has been a massive, highly profitable cottage industry built around this toxic concept, the secret style of magical thinking.
Yes, the toxic positivity movement.
This toxic culture preaches that if you just think positive thoughts intensely enough, reality will magically bend to your personal whims. It tells people that if they just vibrate at the frequency of extreme wealth, $1 million will literally drop through the roof into their living room, completely ignoring systemic economic realities or their own crushing credit card debt. It's a psychological disease known as spiritual bypassing.
The source text rejects that kind of solipsistic magical thinking entirely. Attempting to mentally force reality to conform to your unearned desires isn't alignment, it is sheer delusion. It is the ultimate hubris of the isolated 40-bit ego thinking it is bigger than the 11 million-bit environment.
The text provides a brilliant, highly specific metaphor to crush this delusion. It says that alignment is not standing outside in a freezing torrential downpour, wearing nothing but a t-shirt, getting soaked to the bone and shivering, while furiously shouting at the clouds, "I manifest the sun. I vibrate with the frequency of a sunny 75-degree day. The rain is an illusion."
No, of course not. That's madness. True alignment with reality is recognizing it is raining, accepting that you cannot control the weather,
Yep.
and putting on a raincoat.
Yes, alignment is putting on a damn raincoat.
Yeah.
It is intelligent, respectful, highly practical engagement with what is, not what you desperately wish was.
Exactly.
If the macroeconomy crashes, alignment isn't sitting on your couch staring at a vision board pretending you're a millionaire. Alignment is aggressively restructuring your budget and cutting your expenses. It is responding accurately and proportionally to the raw data of reality. You have to respect the rain.
Which brings us perfectly to the final piece, layer 3, the field. Once you are internally coherent and not fighting yourself, that's layer 1. And once you are dealing respectfully with the objective facts on the ground without delusion, that's layer 2, you finally have the capacity to align with the timing and momentum of the unseen force, which is layer 3.
This ties right back into the spiral of time and reading the synchronicities.
Exactly. Aligning with the field means developing the sensitivity to sense redirection. It means moving with the organic momentum of the current rather than endlessly fighting it to prove your own strength.
So give me a practical example of that.
Let's say you are aggressively applying for a very specific job at a specific company. You are internally coherent about wanting it, and you have the realistic skills for it, but you keep getting inexplicably blocked.
Like everything goes wrong.
Right. The emails mysteriously bounce, the hiring manager goes on emergency leave, the department funding suddenly falls through. Your 40-bit ego, trained by our culture of sheer force, will immediately say, "I must push harder. I must smash through this brick wall to prove how badly I want it."
Yeah, that's exactly what we're taught to do. Never give up.
But aligning with the field means taking a step back, reading the resonance, and asking a highly sophisticated question. Is this friction merely a test of my grit that I need to overcome? Or is this massive, heavy door jammed shut because the complex system of the unseen force is actively redirecting me to a completely different hallway?
It's the subtle art of sensing whether the wind is at your back, pushing you forward, or relentlessly blowing directly in your face. And if hurricane force winds are constantly blowing in your face for months on end, no matter what you do, maybe you're just stubbornly walking in the wrong direction.
But arriving at that realization introduces a massive, deeply painful psychological conflict. Because even if you understand these 3 layers perfectly on an intellectual level, the human ego still faces one terrifying, almost insurmountable hurdle.
So I know what's coming.
What happens when your internal coherence is rock solid? You deeply respect reality, you've read the field, but reality completely violently upends your meticulously crafted, deeply cherished plans anyway. What happens when the storm destroys the house you built?
And there it is. The transition to arguably the hardest concept for the modern control-obsessed mind to swallow. We are explicitly stepping into Chapter 28, Surrender.
Yeah,
Specifically, we're diving into the first half of Chapter 28.
surrender.
Let's rebrand this word immediately. Because right now, in the year 2026, its brand equity is in the gutter. We need to elevate the discourse here. We all know the dictionary definition. In Western hyper-capitalist culture, what does surrender connote?
Weakness.
Right. It connotes utter weakness. It means waving the white flag. It means you were beaten, you capitulated, you gave up on your dreams, and you were passively letting the enemy or the universe run roughshod over you. It is the ultimate dirty word in high-performance circles. We are taught to hack, to optimize, and to dominate our environment.
Surrender is treated as synonymous with failure. but the text redefines it completely, stripping away the passivity. It uses a high-level martial arts metaphor to shatter our rigid preconceptions. It compares true spiritual surrender to the mechanics of judo.
I found this so deeply compelling. Break down the physics of that for us.
Consider a judo match. You are standing on the mat, and a massive opponent, let's say they weigh 250 pounds, and are charging at you with incredible, aggressive speed.
Okay, that sounds terrifying.
If you operate under the Western paradigm of domination and holding your ground, what do? You plant your feet, tense all your muscles, lock your joints, and try to block their mass head-on with your own rigid strength.
And what happens? You get absolutely crushed. The sheer physics of the momentum dictate that your bones will literally break, because you foolishly opposed a vastly superior force with a finite, rigid resistance.
Precisely. But a judo master operates on a completely different paradigm. A judo master does not block. A judo master surrenders to the momentum of the attack.
Wait, explain how that's surrender.
As the massive force charges, the master relaxes their rigidity. They step fluidly to the side, grasp the opponent's uniform, and use the attacker's own massive kinetic energy and momentum to sweep their legs and throw them to the mat. That is not passive weakness. That is incredibly dynamic, highly engaged, hyper-aware collaboration with the reality of the force presented to you. You are yielding to overcome.
That is a staggering paradigm shift. True surrender is dynamic collaboration with reality, not passive capitulation. That is a, quote, worthy distinction that everyone needs to write on their mirror. It is actively engaging with the kinetic momentum of what is actually happening in your life rather than rigidly, painfully demanding it be different so you can maintain control.
It changes everything.
And the text doesn't just leave us with a cool metaphor. It gives us a literal, physical visualization practice to train our brains to do this. It calls it the two-handed gesture.
I highly recommend our listeners actually visualize this right now. Or if you aren't driving, physically do it. Hold both of your hands out in front of you, palms up.
Okay, I'm doing it. My hands are out.
Hand one, let's say your right hand, is the hand of taking hold. This is the hand of ultimate, extreme ownership and responsibility. It represents your personal agency in the world. Using this hand means you are going to show up fully to your life. You are going to do the grueling work. You are going to rigorously prepare. You are going to speak your truth, set firm boundaries, and practice your craft with relentless dedication.
So hand one is the antidote to laziness.
Yeah.
It is not sitting back on the couch, eating junk food and sighing, oh, well, the universe will manifest my career and fix my toxic relationship for me.
Absolutely not. Hand one is rigorous, intense, focused effort. You study for the exam, you build the prototype, you have the hard conversation. But, and this is the entire crux of chapter 28, hand two, your left hand, is the hand of releasing.
Releasing what exactly?
Releasing your white-knuckled neurotic attachment to a specific outcome. Releasing the deep-seated illusion that you have the power to control the final result.
Okay, give me an example.
You use hand one to prepare for the crucial job interview flawlessly. You research the company, you practice your answers, you dress impeccably. But you use hand two to deeply, genuinely accept that whether you actually get the job or not is up to 1,000 complex variables in the macro field that you absolutely cannot control.
Right.
The interviewer might have a headache that day. The company might lose its funding an hour before you walk in. The CEO might hire their incompetent nephew.
It's the ultimate beautiful paradox of high performance. I will give absolutely everything I have, all of my energy and skill, to the execution of this moment, and I will demand absolutely nothing from the result.
If we connect this back to the biology of the brain, think about the psychological genius of this two-handed stance. When disaster strikes, when a meticulously laid plan completely falls apart, what does the untrained 40-bit ego immediately do? It throws a tantrum. It screams, this should not be happening.
But constantly, it's so unfair. I did all the work. I deserve that promotion. My flight shouldn't be canceled. I have a wedding to get to.
And all of that emotional energy, all of that cortisol is entirely wasted fighting the unyielding reality of layer two. The flight is canceled. The promotion is gone. Screaming at the gate agent doesn't conjure an airplane out of thin air.
Definitely not.
But adopting the two-handed gesture instantly mechanically bypasses the brain's internal complaint department. It completely short-circuits the victim narrative. It shifts your entire operating system from the useless question of, why is this happening to me, to the highly functional question, since this is happening, how can I best move with it? How can I judo this momentum to my advantage?
It deletes the friction. Since this is happening, what an incredibly powerful, liberating phrase. It accepts the canceled flight, the lost client, the unexpected breakup, or the economic downturn as the raw, objective material of the present moment. And it asks, what is the unseen force building with this new material, and how do I assist in the construction?
Exactly.
Which leads us finally to the ultimate evolution of the human operating system. If we can master the two-handed gesture, we finally drop the heavy, exhausting, suffocating illusion of control. And nature abhors a vacuum. What replaces that illusion of control? That brings us to segment 6, second half of chapter 28, co-creation.
Co-creation is the grand synthesis of everything we've discussed today. It is the integration of the 11 million bits, the spiral of time, alignment, and surrender. But the source material does something absolutely brilliant here. Just when the concepts are getting incredibly lofty, when the reader is feeling profoundly enlightened and spiritual, the author aggressively drags the traveler right back down into the mud of reality.
Oh, thank goodness for the Emojiverse PDF. Because honestly, after reading hundreds of pages about spirals of time, resonance, and judo throwing the universe with my two-handed gesture, you start feeling like a levitating Zen master floating above the clouds.
You really do.
And then the text introduces this supplementary section called the Emojiverse,
Mm.
which is essentially the comedic blooper reel of enlightenment.
It is a vital grounding reality check. The central, unavoidable conflict of the emojiverse is this. What actually happens when all of this high-level, pristine spiritual architecture collides head-on with the messy, mundane, utterly ridiculous, chaotic reality of modern corporate life?
The scene the author paints is so painfully relatable I was wincing while reading it. The traveler in the story has just finished a weekend of this deep, profound work. They've unclogged their 11 million bit intuition. They are in total layer 3 alignment. They're holding the two-handed gesture perfectly. They feel like a glowing, translucent being of pure, unadulterated light and universal love.
And then Monday morning arrives.
Right, and the traveler is immediately dropped into a mundane, low-stakes corporate Zoom call.
With their very normal, very unenlightened coworkers, Sarah and Mike.
Yes, and of course, because layer 2 reality is messy, the internet connection glitches. The screen freezes. The traveler is sitting there in absolute profound, enlightened silence, feeling at one with the cosmos. And the boss squints closely at the webcam and asks, "Hey, are you frozen?"
It is the classic, absurd, modern interruption of the sacred.
And the traveler, because they are trying so incredibly hard to live in their new, highly aligned truth, feels like they can't just lie and give the socially acceptable answer of, "Oh, sorry, bad Wi-Fi." They feel this burning compulsion to be radically, spiritually authentic in a venue that absolutely does not call for it. So they awkwardly, intensely blurt out to their coworkers, "I had a very integrating weekend."
And the silence that follows? The text specifically notes that the awkward silence lasts for 8 seconds in Zoom time, which, psychologically speaking, is essentially a decade.
A decade. You can vividly picture Sarah and Mike exchanging panicked, private Slack messages in the background. Like, what is wrong with them? Did they join a cult over the weekend? Should we call HR? And the traveler is sitting there internally screaming, "Abort! Abort! Say something normal!" So they frantically try to walk it back and follow it up with, I also watched a documentary on Netflix.
It is deeply hilarious, but it illustrates a profound, critical point about this work. Enlightenment, alignment, co-creation, these aren't states of permanent, untouchable bliss where you float above human existence.
Right.
You are still going to have bad Wi-Fi. You are still going to say awkward, cringe-inducing things on video calls. You are still going to burn your toast, stub your toe, and get annoyed in traffic. Co-creation isn't about escaping the mundane world into some spiritual fantasy. It is about bringing your newly integrated, highly sensitive self into the messy, mundane world and learning to play with it without losing your center.
The text describes this journey of integration as a 3-stage evolution of how human beings interact with reality.
Exactly. We all begin our lives as a user.
And the user is essentially an infant, even if they are 40 years old. The user is just randomly clicking icons on the desktop, completely unaware of the operating system. We are entirely reactive. We react to whatever happens to us, hoping we accidentally click a button that gives us a dopamine reward, and we loudly complain when we get an error message. The user's mantra is simply, "Why is this happening to me?"
Then, as we mature, as we read self-help books, learn about goal setting, discipline, and part 1 self-regulation, we evolve and try to become the architect.
This is where 99% of high achievers, CEOs, and driven professionals get permanently stuck. The architect believes they are a god. They try to forcefully, aggressively control every single variable of their existence. They draw the meticulous blueprints of their life perfectly, and they use pure, unadulterated willpower to force layer 2 reality to match their drawing.
But the architect is secretly exhausted, chronically anxious, and highly rigid. When a massive, unpredictable storm blows their beautiful blueprint away, they suffer a total psychological collapse because their entire identity was tied to the outcome.
Which is why the ultimate mastery, the true pinnacle of Chapter 28 and its entire framework, is letting go of the exhausting role of the architect and becoming a participant.
I absolutely love the massive gaming analogy the source uses here to explain the participant. It makes the abstract concept incredibly tangible. It says that human life is not a pre-recorded movie.
Meaning, it isn't pure deterministic fate. You aren't just an actor reading a script that was written for you at the dawn of time with no choices of your own.
Right, but it also explicitly isn't a solo sandbox game like single-player Minecraft, where you are God and you get to dictate every single pixel of the universe to your liking.
Meaning, it isn't pure, unconstrained free will without consequences or boundaries.
Exactly. It is a live, massively multiplayer game. There are hard rules. There is a deeply coded physics engine that's layer 2 reality. There are millions of other active players making their own unpredictable moves, and there is a dynamic, constantly shifting environment generated by the unseen force.
As a participant, you realize you don't make the pattern alone. You participate in the pattern. You use your 11 million bit intuition to read the live server updates. You use the two-handed gesture to play your absolute best, utilizing every skill you have while completely releasing the need to control the final leaderboard. You realize that you are not just playing the game. Your actions, your coherence, are a living, breathing update to the system itself.
When you truly embody the participant, the crushing, anxiety-inducing pressure to control the universe vanishes. You realize you are co-creating reality in real time with the unseen force. Your only job is to maintain your internal alignment, trust the biological data of your synchronicities, put on your raincoat when it storms, and play your unique, specific note in the grand symphony.
Wow. Okay, let's just take a deep collective breath, because we have covered an absolutely immense, sprawling landscape of human psychology and philosophy today. We've gone from the very foundational biology of the mind to the absolute peak of cosmic participation. Let me quickly recap this massive, profound journey for you, the listener, before we close.
Please do.
We started in the quiet at 3 a.m., crossing the threshold, leaving the meticulously controlled architecture of the self, and discovering the vast unseen force. We realize we are plugged into a massive thermodynamic environmental network, not just driving alone in the dark.
We unlocked the biological supercomputer of our bodies.
Yes, learning the neurological necessity of trusting the 11 million bits of our visceral intuition over the tiny, anxious 40 bits of our conscious minds. We tuned our physical receivers to pick up the resonance of synchronicity, and we learned how to step off the mechanical, linear timeline of the factory floor and into the rich, folding spiral of time.
Then we learned how to practically align.
Not by forcing agreement in a boardroom, but by finding deep internal coherence, respecting the hard, unyielding constraints of reality, by putting on our anti-manifestation raincoats and moving fluidly with the momentum of the unseen field.
And we tackled the ego's final boss surrender.
We learned the dynamic physics of the judo throw of reality, and we practiced the beautiful, paradoxical, two-handed gesture holding fierce, uncompromising responsibility in one hand and total peaceful release of the outcome in the other.
And finally, through the awkward, relatable comedy of the Emojiverse Zoom call, we learned how to evolve.
We stopped being reactive users, blindly clicking buttons. We formally retired from being exhausted, controlling architects, and we stepped fully onto the field as true, dynamic, co-creative participants.
And as you listen to this, the most important paradigm-shifting takeaway is this. You are not an isolated, disconnected device frantically operating on 1% battery trying to force your way through life. You are a highly sensitive, vital node in a vast, living, breathing network. Every single time you achieve that quarter second of dual participation, where you are fully present in the moment, taking action while remaining intimately aware of the larger current moving around you, you are sending a new, highly coherent ripple into the field. You are physically changing the code of the operating system for all of us.
So, to leave you with a final provocative thought today to carry with you into your week, I want you to think about the absolute biggest obstacle or the most infuriating, deeply painful frustration you are facing in your life right this very second. Think of the exact thing that is making you want to scream at the clouds in the rain. What if that obstacle isn't a barrier at all? What if that massive jammed door you've been bruising your shoulder against isn't a failure, but is actually the unseen force's highly intelligent way of aggressively redirecting you down a much better, more resonant hallway.
It's a powerful reframe.
What would happen if, just for today, you stopped rigidly playing the exhausted architect? What if you approached that specific, painful obstacle with the two-handed gesture? Take fierce hold of what you can actually control, deeply release what you cannot, and simply ask the most powerful question in the human operating system. Since this is happening, how can I best move with it?
Such a great question.
Think about that tonight, maybe around 3 a.m., sitting quietly at the kitchen table while the fridge hums and your heart beats all on its own, powered by a magnificent force much larger than yourself. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.